The rain hammered against the hospital window as Thomas gripped his best friend's hand, watching the steady rise and fall of Marcus's chest grow weaker with each passing hour. They had been inseparable since childhood, two boys from the wealthy district who had found adventure in everything from tree climbing to business ventures. Now, at 28, Thomas was about to lose the only person who had ever truly understood him. "Promise me," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible above the machines that kept him tethered to life. The accident had been sudden, a drunk driver, a moment's inattention, and Marcus's promising life as a doctor was ending before it had truly begun. "Promise me you'll take care of Elena." Thomas had met Elena only twice, both times briefly when she had visited Marcus at the hospital. She worked as a seamstress in the lower quarter of the city, her small apartment a world away from the marble halls and crystal chandeliers of Thomas's family estate. The first time he saw her, he noticed the way she moved carefully, one side of her face turned slightly away from view. Burns, Marcus had explained later, a childhood accident that had left her with scars that twisted from her left temple down to her jaw. "She has no one else," Marcus continued, his grip tightening with desperate strength. "Her parents died when she was 16. She's been alone ever since, working herself to exhaustion just to survive. But Thomas, she's the strongest person I've ever known. The kindest. She deserves someone who will see her worth." Thomas nodded, though uncertainty clawed at his chest. He had been raised in privilege, expected to marry within his social circle, to maintain the family's reputation and fortune. His parents had already begun introducing him to suitable young women from prominent families, beautiful, educated, accomplished ladies who would complement his position in society. "I promise," he said, the words feeling both too heavy and too light on his tongue. Marcus smiled, and for a moment, his face held the same boyish grin that had gotten them into countless adventures. "She won't make it easy for you. Elena's proud. She'll think you're doing this out of pity." He paused, breathing slowly. "But if you're patient, if you really see her, you'll understand why I fell in love with her." 3 days later, Thomas stood at Marcus's graveside, watching as Elena placed a single white rose on the mahogany casket. She wore a simple black dress, mended carefully at the seams, and her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun. Even in grief, she held herself with a dignity that made Thomas's throat tighten with something he couldn't quite name. After the service, as the mourners dispersed to their carriages and automobiles, Thomas approached her. She was still standing by the grave, her gloved hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Miss Elena," he said softly. She turned, and for the first time, he saw her face fully in the afternoon light. The scars were more extensive than he had realized, pulling at the corner of her left eye and disappearing beneath the high collar of her dress. But her eyes, dark brown and fierce with unshed tears, held a strength that made him forget everything else. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, her voice steady despite the grief he could see etched in every line of her face. "Thank you for coming. Marcus spoke of you often." "He spoke of you as well," Thomas replied. He asked me to look after you." Elena's expression hardened immediately. "I don't need looking after." "I didn't mean to imply." "Yes, you did." She stepped back, her chin lifting with unmistakable pride. "You meant exactly that. A poor, scarred woman who needs rescuing by a wealthy gentleman. I've been taking care of myself since I was 16, Mr. Whitmore. I don't intend to stop now." She walked away before he could respond, leaving Thomas standing alone among the headstones, realizing that Marcus had been right about one thing: Elena would not make this easy. Over the following weeks, Thomas found himself visiting the small tailor shop where Elena worked. He commissioned shirts he didn't need, had suits altered that fit perfectly well, all for the chance to watch her work and attempt conversation. Each time, she was polite but distant, treating him with the cool professionalism she might show any customer. "You're wasting your money," she said one afternoon, not looking up from the delicate embroidery she was working on. "And my time. Perhaps I enjoy the craftsmanship," Thomas replied, running his fingers along the precise stitching of a jacket she had altered. "This is exceptional work. Flattery won't change anything. It's not flattery if it's true." He paused, watching her hands move with practiced precision. "Marcus was right about your strength. But he was also right about your stubborn pride." Elena's needle stilled. "He had no right to burden you with me." "Is that what you think? That you're a burden?" She finally looked up, her scarred face flushed with anger. "I know what I am, Mr. Whitmore. I know what I look like, what people see when they look at me. I know the difference between your world and mine. Marcus was kind enough to see past all of that, but I won't fool myself into thinking anyone else will." Thomas set down the jacket and moved closer to her workstation. What if I told you that you're wrong? I'd say you're either lying or deluded. And what if I told you that I've been thinking about you every day since the funeral? Not because of any promise to Marcus, but because I can't get you out of my head. Alina's hands trembled slightly as she set down her needle. Then I'd say you need to think harder about what you're really doing here. The challenge in her voice sparked something in Thomas that he hadn't expected. For weeks, he had been approaching this as an obligation, a promise to fulfill. But standing in her small, cluttered shop, surrounded by the evidence of her skill and determination, he realized that Marcus had given him something far more valuable than a burden. He had given him the chance to know Elena. Very well, Thomas said, pulling on his coat. I'll think harder, but I'll also be back tomorrow. And the day after that. Not because of Marcus, not out of pity, but because I choose to be here. True to his word, Thomas returned daily. Sometimes he brought legitimate business, sometimes he simply sat in the corner chair she reluctantly allowed him, reading while she worked. Gradually, the walls between them began to lower. He learned about her childhood before the accident, her dreams of becoming a teacher that had been abandoned when her parents died. She learned about his struggles with his family's expectations, his desire to do something meaningful with his inherited wealth. Why don't you? She asked one evening as she locked up the shop. They had begun walking together to the corner where their paths diverged, and Thomas treasured these few blocks of easy conversation. Why don't I what? Do something meaningful. You have resources most people can only dream of. Thomas was quiet for several steps. I suppose I've never known how. My father built his fortune on smart investments and careful social connections. I was raised to maintain that, not to question it. Marcus questioned everything, Elena said softly. It's what made him a good doctor. What made him see people instead of just patients. Is that why you loved him? She stopped walking, her hand resting lightly on a lamppost. I loved him because he was brave enough to love me first. Without reservation, without conditions. She looked at Thomas directly, her scarred face beautiful in the gaslight. Can you understand what that meant to someone like me? Thomas felt something shift in his chest, a recognition that cut deeper than admiration or attraction. I think I'm beginning to. Winter settled over the city, and with it came Thomas's mother's increasingly pointed questions about his daily absences and his failure to court any of the young ladies she had introduced him to. The confrontation, when it came, was as brutal as he had expected. A seamstress, his mother said, her voice sharp with disgust. Thomas, surely you cannot be serious. The girl is disfigured, penniless, completely unsuitable. Elena is intelligent, skilled, and has more integrity than most people in our circle, Thomas replied, standing his ground in his father's study while both parents regarded him with horror. She's a charity case, his father interjected. And this sudden interest in her is clearly some misguided attempt to honor poor Marcus. But you cannot throw away your future, your family's reputation, for a momentary impulse. It's not momentary, and it's not an impulse. Then what is it? His mother demanded. Thomas thought of Elena's hands working in the lamplight, her quiet dignity in the face of the world's cruelty, the way she had mourned Marcus with a grief so pure it had taught him something about love he had never understood before. It's a choice, he said simply. When he proposed to Elena on a cold February evening in her shop, she didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied his face with those fierce dark eyes, searching for something he hoped she would find. Are you certain? She asked finally. Your family will disown you. Your friends will whisper. You'll be tied to someone the world considers beneath you. The world is wrong about many things, Thomas replied, taking her scarred hands in his. But I'm not wrong about this. I'm not wrong about you. And if I say yes, what then? Then we build something together. Something Marcus would be proud of. Elena was quiet for a long moment, and Thomas could see her weighing not just his proposal, but everything it would cost both of them. Finally, she smiled, the first real smile he had ever seen from her. Yes, she said, but I have conditions. They were married in a simple ceremony with no one from Thomas's family present. Elena wore a dress she had made herself, ivory silk with intricate embroidery that transformed the scars on her face into something that looked like delicate lacework in the candlelight. As Thomas watched her walk toward him, he realized that Marcus had given him far more than he had promised to give Elena. He had given him the chance to discover that real courage wasn't about wealth or status or the absence of scars. It was about choosing love despite the cost, about seeing worth where others saw only damage, about building something beautiful from the broken pieces life handed you. Elena had been right, she was braver than he would ever be. But perhaps, with her beside him, he might learn what true bravery looked like.